welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'm really excited to talk about this book that was super, super fun in so many ways. There's so many things that I could describe it as, but I'm going to let the author introduce herself and talk about Late Night Witches before we dive into it. So first of all, Auralee, welcome to Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. We're excited. And tell us a little bit about yourself and about this book.
Oh, about myself, I'm going to say a little bit like my character. I'm a mom of three, and I'm trying to figure out how to balance a lot of my life with my kids. And this book is about that with the added bonus of vampires. It actually came from a difficult point in my life where I was recently diagnosed with breast cancer about 3 years ago. And I had to write a book at the time, but I was still kind of in shock. I had just finished active treatment and I was still in a place where I was trying to figure out how to be normal. And so I came up with this idea that I wanted to write a book about a mom fighting vampires. And I didn't realize right away I was using a lot of kind of my own shock at what can happen in life and how you think you've got things figured out, or maybe you're even stuck in some ways, and then life can just change in an instant. So that's a little bit about where this book came from.
So, first of all, thank you for sharing that. That is a very difficult thing to talk about. I thank you for sharing that with us. The story itself, I mean, I could certainly tell I'm the mother of two, but I do have twin boys,
Oh, wow.
like Cassandra. Yeah, so I appreciated that, and I don't feel like we see enough stories like this, by the way, also of, women who are moms and who are, like struggling with some of the things that Cassandra or Cass is struggling with. Like, her husband has decided, and it's like, it's this weird thing, right? He's off with Doctors Without Borders, which is nice and a noble cause, but you get the sense from the very beginning that on the other side of that, like kind of, the other part of that is it's also a very good, and good being the opportune word, excuse to ignore the things that are happening in his household and take responsibility or just be a father, I mean, that is part of who he is too. And while we certainly need people who are brave and, do things like that, Cassie needed him at home, and he was kind of using that as an excuse to sort of be like, yeah, no, home's great, but I'm needed here. Bye. So that was, like that was just kind of this real world sort of feeling that was injected in the book. You learn a little bit about Cassie and her sister, how they grew up together under foster parents after they lost their mother. They have an aunt who lives in the town who's considered a little kooky, and then things start going a little weird. And it was just a really fun book about community and family with magic and witches and vampires. You've written other books about witches before, right?
Yes, I have. I keep going back to witches. I think, ever since I was a little kid, I was lucky enough to, my backyard bordered on a forest, and there was a creek. And like a lot of kids in my generation, I was just sent out to play a lot. And so I would play pretend to be a witch. I would make up spells and potions in this creek. And Grimm's fairy tales were a big part of my life back then, and I just haven't been able to let that go. But I do think, there's a lot and I don't want to say exactly just what women do, but there is a sort of magic that is often associated with women. Like a lot of the characters I write about come from my mom and the magic she made in the home. And, I'm not saying, she loved cooking dinner every night. But there were times when she would make a meal and it was magical. And she put love into it and care and artistry. There were other times where she could put together a bouquet of flowers from the back garden and it was gorgeous. It was art. And I think, there is magic in some of the simple things in life when we show love. And that was kind of where I wanted to get at in this book. The whole thing with, yeah, Cassie and her husband is doing very important work. Raising kids is also very important work, and it often just isn't valued or is seen that way, but it's hard. And I think a lot of women can relate to the fact that you can lose yourself a bit in the role. And, it's hard to find that balance between retaining your own identity and being there for your family. And then on occasion, saving an island from vampires.
Yeah, and the island itself was just kind of lovely. Just the area they live in and just, you get a real cool sense of this town. Did you base it on a town that you are familiar with?
Well, I've only been to PEI once, but the nice thing about PEI, if you visit, is that you can take in a lot of the island in a short period of time. It's not very big, but it's stunning. And, it's like the red sand beaches are incredibly special. And then you get this grass that is so green and vibrant, and it was really stunning. And I would recommend for anyone to visit. And for me, I really like the idea of vampires running around on Anna Green Gables territory. It just, I wanted this to be a fun book. And for me, that just seemed to be a kind of cool juxtaposition.
I mean, that would be a fun story in and of itself. Anna Green Gables Vampire Slayer, right?
Oh, I love it. That would be fun. I really like that.
Yeah, it was so funny because it's like I know what Prince Edward Island is usually to people in literature,
Yes.
and it is Anne of Green Gables, and I wasn't thinking that while I was reading this book that, like that what I just said. But now that I'm thinking about it, that would be hilarious.
It really would be. I think Anne could do a good job, and there would be lots of drama.
Oh my God, it would be so much fun. But
Yeah.
seriously, no, this book was really sweet. I really liked the dynamic between Eliza and Cassie. Also, Eliza being her much younger sister, who, like it's kind of different the way that their magic shows up. I know that the book has been kind of compared a little bit to practical magic. Eliza's magic is rooted in story. And I thought that that was very clever. But just, I liked how, they both, like everybody sort of approached or accepted the fact that these were a family of witches or that they were part of a family of witches in completely different ways.
I like the idea of I think individuality where everybody's magic shows up in a different way. Everybody has confidence in different areas of their lives and are motivated by different things. I really did want this to be a book too about family dynamics. I find it really interesting how people grow in relationships. And, anyone who's made any kind of change in their life, it affects everybody around you and everybody around you. And I liked exploring that idea. And it's also, it's tricky because in families, we all have roles that we're used to playing. And when you want to change that up or life forces you to change that up, that can be really difficult for everyone around you and everybody has to adapt. But I like the idea of people growing together and people being stronger together. And, that's a very hopeful message to me.
There is a lot of just emotional struggle as to whether or not because of course there are vampires, and as in most of these stories there's a head vampire and there's a prophecy about who's supposed to slay the head vampire. I and I guess just as an aside, are you a Buffy fan?
Yes,
Yeah.
most definitely.
Me too. Yeah.
I mean, I don't, I'm going to age myself completely, but yes, I was very, very deeply into Buffy. And, it really just, like I was about her age at the time, and it just captured my imagination, the idea of, unexpected people finding strength and keeping up the battle. I love that too. Plus, and I do love that kind of B movie vibe that Buffy always had, where there were very serious themes and there were very sad moments, but there was so much humor too. And, for me, that's kind of what life is about. It's, as whatever struggles you're going through, there are happy moments. There are ridiculous moments. There are times you just have to laugh. It's the only way you can get through. So yeah, I was a huge Buffy fan. And then after that, I liked Supernatural. I like movies like Lost Boys, The Craft, all those sorts of things have always appealed to me.
I did, yeah, because there was just certain like fun Buffy vibes here. And, I think like one of the things like we mentioned, there's you have the prophecy of who's supposed to slay the head vampire, and you have the mentor who is Dorcas, who is a lot of fun, by the way. She's one of my
Oh,
favorite characters. She was like my favorite, I have to say. Like I really enjoyed reading her.
Dorcas is who I would like to be. She's
Wouldn't
okay, well,
we
maybe a
all?
bit eccentric, and maybe she has a few too many cats in her house by the sea, but no, no,
No,
never too
I
many
don't think
cats.
that's possible. I want all the cats in my house
All the
by the
cats.
sea.
Yes.
Yes.
We recently just got two kittens, and I tell you, I could get five more, but no. But yeah, I like the idea of, she's kind of your battle-worn witch who has been through a lot, but still gets up every day to continue the fight. And yeah, and maybe a little weird, but we're all a little weird.
Yeah, no, she was fun, and I enjoyed, just the sisters' journey of sort of reconnecting with themselves and then working with her to claim, because Cassie is supposed to be the witch of her age. But one thing that did strike me, and something that I think about a lot, when you read these types of stories or when you tell these types of stories, is that, somebody's always the witch of their age or the slayer of their age until the next one comes along. And it made me think a little bit about just her responsibility as a mom, because then that responsibility would be passed on to her daughter, Sadie, if
Right.
she failed, which was a terrifying thought to fail to begin with, but also, like she fails and she doesn't do what she needs to do or what needs to be done, her sister, sorry, her daughter could be next in line, or might be next in line anyway, because it never
Yeah.
stops at that one vampire. There's always the
No.
prophecy, like, oh, that was one thing that was always funny. I think there was a gag in Buffy once where like Giles was reading and he's like, oh my goodness, it's the apocalypse, and everybody goes, again. Uh, you know, but
Exactly.
that the responsibility would always be passed on. So I did appreciate just sort of that feeling of taking everything on your shoulders.
Yeah, and again, that really came from a personal space. It's, you know, for parents out there, like you've got this incredible, overwhelming, like responsibility and love for your children where you don't want anything to ever bad to happen to them. And the problem is life is so messy. And, if things happen. And again, like I never thought I'd be getting breast cancer in my 40s. And my first reaction was, I can't have breast cancer. I have kids. And, that was such a bizarre thought to me. It was so surreal because, I had just had this very narrow focus of the kids are everything. I can make life perfect for them. And you can't always. And, trying to, again, find that balance of how do you raise kids and deal with the messiness of life. And it's a real struggle, but I think oftentimes you grow and you find it can be done by going through the struggle. And the kids grow from it too. And they learn because they're going to be adults too one day and they're going to face their own messy lives. And trying to protect them from all the realities of life isn't realistic. So growing together, loving together, finding those bonds together, I think that's part of what I really want to get through. But it is a surreal experience. I mean, like, like trying to do Christmas and buy Christmas presents when, I was waiting on MRI results was a really bizarre experience for me. And that was kind of the surrealness where I wanted to mix in for Cassie, where it's like, yeah, she's got a master vampire to fight, but her kids need rubber boots. you know, and did they eat their vegetables today and all those, that kind of struggle. So, yeah.
I don't want to give away too much other than just tell people this is a really fun book. It's, just I think people will be drawn in by the characters, but I do want to ask if you would be continuing with these characters anytime in the future.
There's no plans right now. Um, this was meant to be a standalone. I mean, I did leave it a little bit open at the ending, but that's because I like the idea of, the battle continuing. For me, that was a bit of a for those who have watched Supernatural, like the fight always goes on type of thing. So, I mean, I would never say no completely, but right now I'm working on something that's very different. I've got a romantic fantasy between two librarians in a library full of ghosts. So it's a
That
very
sounds fun.
it is, and it's sweet, and so that's where my head's at right now. And but I never seem to be able to leave witches alone for long, so we'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean it really was like this was really just a fun book and I would spend more time in this world for sure. I am curious how you began writing.
So I was one of those people, like, when I was a kid, I remember being really young and saying to my dad, I wanted to be a writer. And he's like, I'm not sure that's really a career. And I told my parents again later when I was in my 20s, I wanted to do that. And again, they came from a generation where it was like, you need to get a job. And so I put that all on the back burner. I went to school. When I first started at university, I was majoring in economics, minoring in politics, and that lasted about 2 weeks. And then I switched to English and psychology. But I still fought it. I went into a marketing job. I taught for a while at the college level. And then when my husband's job moved us to a different city, I thought, okay, you know what? Now's the time. I'm really going to give it a shot. The only thing was I was pregnant with my third child, and I had a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And I thought, yeah, I can just do this, no problem. And that was, wow. Once I got an agent and things started happening really quickly. And it was tricky. I'm not gonna lie, not a lot of sleep, little kids in the house. Oh God, snow days when you're on a deadline. It's just like, I don't, but it was tough, but it's worth it. And so, yeah, it was one of those things for me, I just couldn't let go. So,
Well, I'm glad you did not. Check out Late Night Witches. When is it officially on shelves?
I believe it's August 18th, although I saw on Amazon August 19th today. I'm not sure what's going on, but
Well, you're going to want to check it out. Run to your library or to your favorite bookstore and pick it up. Thank you so much, Auralee. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you. You too. It was wonderful to be here.
And we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.